Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Apologies for the delay. Always a few technical difficulties. But anyway, I just wanted to thank all of you for joining. And my name is Therese Manley. I am the federal government laboratory, representing the federal government laboratory, who is sponsoring the First Responder UAS Triple Challenge. Today, we're here to talk about the 3.1 FastFind challenge and the 3.2 Lifelink challenge. And we will proceed with also letting you know that there's an option for a third challenge, but we'll talk about that in just a few moments. So today, I've just introduced myself. I'm the prize manager for this UAS challenge. I'm part of the Public Safety Communications Research Lab at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is also referred to as NIST. Maxwell Maurice is an electronics engineer, and he will also be joining us today to describe some of the logistics of the challenge. And Dr. Kurt Barnhart is the lead principal investigator at KSU, who is contracted to support us on this challenge. And as a subcontractor on the challenge, we also have Mississippi State University. So today we are going to be running through a variety of pieces of information to help you understand what the overview of the organization is that represents the hosts for the challenge. And then we'll also get into the challenge goals, why we're here and what first responders are looking for. Max will also talk about the requirements and objectives of the challenge. We'll get into the timeline and roadmap, the important piece, the prizes of the challenge, and then we will end with some summary slides to help you understand just how things will flow through the challenge. So let me just start here. We are a federal government laboratory, and it falls under the umbrella of the Department of Commerce. You'll see on the right side of the slide that the Public Safety Communications Research Laboratory is focused on research in development and testing of public safety communication technologies. That is why, and that is the focus of the UAS challenge that we will be talking about today. More specifically, it's the wireless communications to support America's first responders. So we're part of a communications technologies lab, which is one of the many labs under the NIST umbrella. The NIST, you may know more importantly for, it is the home of the atomic clock. And it's also one of the oldest physical science laboratories in the US. On the bottom of the slide, you'll see two organizations that are also part of the Department of Commerce umbrella. NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, and they are responsible for telecommunications law and spectrum policies as a principal advisor to the President of the United States. And also another organization that is a sister organization of PSCR is FirstNet, which is the First Responders Network Authority. And they're responsible for building the interoperable public safety broadband network. That's a little background about the overall organization of the federal government that is responsible. However, PSCR is focused on advancing communications technologies for public safety. And we work closely with the first responders all across the country to help them determine what their critical needs are for their day-to-day operations and missions. In a moment, Max will describe some of the logistics of the competition, but we really want you to understand that the criteria for these challenges were carefully designed to help advance research in drone technologies that meet the unique requirements of first responders. Today, we understand that first responders are using unmanned aircraft systems for a variety of missions, but we also need, or they also need those UAS or drones to be dependable and reliable and deployable for their missions. So that's part of our focus here today. So you might ask, why prize challenges? PSCR achieves their mission through a variety of methods. And we certainly have our internal researchers. We also reach out to external researchers in the form of grants and contracts. But similar to what is happening out in industry and in the academic world, we are also looking at ways to crowdsource, or some terms that you might be familiar with are hackathons. Prize challenges fit into that crowdsourcing role, where we're looking for solvers anywhere in the world to help us determine what our research problems are for first responders, but also to help solve them. The prize challenge that we're talking about today, the UAS Triple Challenge, really falls into that, solvers from across the world. So let me just give you a short overview or brief of the 3 challenges that fall under this umbrella that we'll be talking about today. We are specifically talking about the FastFind challenge and the Lifelink challenge. But you might also be interested in the 3rd challenge, which we'll be having a webinar on tomorrow, which is called the Shields Up challenge, which is a cybersecurity challenge. So in the FastFind challenge, we're looking to help first responders in their search and rescue missions by looking at sensors, data analytics, camera, any kind of image detection that might be able to improve the first responders' location of people more quickly. In the Lifelink challenge, we're looking to improve communications to first responders on the ground by providing a continuous broadband coverage in an area where there might be degraded cellular service. And then lastly, the 3rd challenge that we will not be speaking about in detail today, but we wanted to make sure you were aware of it, is asking solvers to demonstrate an attack on a UAS using open source software designed for UAS navigation and control. Now, we do understand that there are many ways to impact security and cybersecurity on a UAS, but we are starting off with this challenge, and in the future, potentially, we will be working more closely with drone manufacturers on those security research areas. So now let's jump into the meat of the challenges, and I'm going to hand off to Maxwell Maurice to talk about the FastFind and the Lifelink challenges. Max?
Great, thank you, Therese. So as Therese said, my name is Maxwell Maurice, and I'm part of the technical team within PSCR or NIST. And so I'm going to go over both challenges 3.1 and 3.2, the FastFind challenge and the Lifelink challenge. Next slide, please. So the first, we're going to talk about the FastFind challenge. And the reason that we're talking about both challenges is that they are very similar to each other and they have similar rule sets, but with slightly different operating procedures. So the scenario of the FastFind challenge is you picture a first responder organization responding to lost persons in a heavily wooded area. A UAS is deployed to help locate these lost hikers or lost persons. And oftentimes, public safety, what they're using today are just regular cameras or maybe a thermal camera with just instincts to look around an area of where they most likely are. The goal of this challenge is for the contestants or you folks to improve on this technology to help locate missing persons faster and from farther away. So in any way that you can improve this technology of a drone with some sort of sensor to help find missing persons is the goal. Next slide. All of what I'm talking about today is explained in our rules document in challenge.gov. However, what we wanted to go over in this webinar is a little bit more detail of what we're going to grade you on. So each challenge has 3 stages associated with it between 3.1 and 3.2. There is stage 1, the concept paper, which is a submission of documents describing how you're going to solve the challenge. Stage 2, which is a check-in with us to make sure that you're making forward progress and to show viability of your solution. And a third stage, which is the live event, where we take your solution and we actually test it out in a realistic scenario. So each of these stages has specific grading criteria, which is again outlined in the rules document, but follow all the things listed in the bullet points. For example, the concept paper, that submission will be graded on how complete it is, how well does it answer the question and address the goals. It grades understandability. Is your proposal, very clear about what its statements are and what your solution does? Feasibility, you're not trying to come up with something that's not technologically feasible. And then spelling and grammar as well. Stage 2, likewise, which we will provide more information as this challenge progresses, will be based off of the completeness and the logistics of your brief to us about how far along you are in the project, as well as there's a video submission with that stage to show us what your drone, where your drone is at. Finally, for the live event, for the FastFind challenge specifically, we'll be looking at the deploy time and recover time of your drone solution. How quickly can it go from an unpacked state to an operational state, and then vice versa with recovering the system and putting it back into its transport mode. We're going to be looking at the search time. How quickly can your drone find multiple persons in a heavily wooded area? How far away you can correctly identify a missing persons in a heavily wooded area, and then target identification accuracy. So are you generating false positives of a missing person in the woods, or are you generating correct identifications of missing persons? So these scoring criteria for each stage is how we're going to differentiate who has the best solution, a better solution, and a good all-around solution. Next slide. Starting again with stage 1, the concept paper submission. For this submission, we are looking for about 4 documents. One is a cover page, which just includes an abstract of what your solution is. A Word document that describes what your solution is in its entirety and how it addresses the problem and how it's going to be different than maybe traditional current solutions. We would like also resume information from key team members on your team, as well as a just quick summary slide to show what in essence is your solution. This entire proposal is going to be due, and we'll talk about the timeline a little bit later, in the coming months. I think it's the end of September. And the entire solution needs to adhere to all of our rules and requirements that we've outlined in our rules document. So there are 2 sections within the rules document, one that describes the solution description content requirement, which are basic questions such as, did you address the goal? Did you address all your team members? Have you outlined points of contact? As well as there's another section titled UAS design specifications. There are certain rules that I will go into in a little bit that your solution must adhere to. Things like, are you Part 107 weight compliant? Do you have drone insurance for your solution? Things like that. And again, I will go over that in a little bit, but for stage 1 concept papers, you must adhere to everything that we're asking for. And again, these are clearly spelled out in our rules document. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us about what would work and what would not work. And so that's a little bit about stage 1, and we'll go to the next slide for stage 2. Stage 2 consists of a brief and a flight video to us, the challenge implementers. So the brief is a presentation about how far along you are. This is going to be in the middle stage of stage 2, and it will include a bill of materials to make sure that you have items on order, that if you have received items that we know about it, and that you are still within our cost requirement of the competition. That is in the middle part of stage 2, and near the end of stage 2, we are requesting that competitors submit a flight video to show us that your UAS solution is viable and can be safely operated and is something that's worth going to the end of stage 3. Next slide. And stage 3, as I said before, is the live event where we're going to actually simulate a search and rescue scenario. We're going to invite contestants to travel to a test facility in Starkville, Mississippi, and we're going to have a live event where we're going to have you find missing persons in a heavily wooded area. Again, we're going to be evaluating you based on how quickly your system can be set up and recovered, how quickly you can find all the missing persons within the woods, the maximum distance from target to where you can correctly identify a missing persons, the identification accuracy of your system, as well as the system cost is included in the live event. Again, throughout this entire process between stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, you must be within our UAS design specifications listed in the rules document. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what those design specifications are. Next slide. So here is the first kind of table of what we require. We're looking for solutions that are under the Part 107 rule set by the FAA. So that means that your entire solution, including the payload, must be under 55 pounds. This was motivated because most first responders operate under Part 107 rule sets for the majority of all of their use cases. We also require that the total system weight of everything from the ground control station to spare parts, spare fuel, sensors, and even your storage container must not exceed 120 pounds. This was motivated as we expect 1 to 2 first responders to be moving this system around. So it's important that we are building solutions that are realistic to a public safety scenario. So your system must weigh under 120 pounds. In addition, your entire system must not exceed $20,000. This was motivated by a public safety survey that we asked where 20,000 was a very good number for public safety to actually afford solutions that solve their issues. In addition, we've also asked that your solution must have VTOL capability, which is vertical takeoff and landing. So your system must be able to start on the ground and vertically take off and then begin its mission. So again, these are all mandatory requirements and minimum values or maximum values for whatever your solution is. And each of these must be addressed in your concept paper. They must be addressed in stage 2, and they must be addressed and met in stage 3. Next slide. Here are a few more of the requirements that we ask for. And because the Lifelink challenge and the FastFind challenge are very similar, these requirements are almost identical, save for anything here in yellow. So for the FastFind challenge, we've asked that your system be able to loiter within a small box defined by 750 feet by 750 feet by 20 feet. This is different than what we're going to talk about in the Lifelink challenge, so it should be noted when you are building your proposal and building your system that your system can adhere to that requirement. We also ask that the level of autonomy of your system must be capable of automatic takeoff and landing, as well as waypoint navigation. And we also ask that your system provide real-time video down to the controller. So this is some sort of camera system that's on your drone. We also ask that your system have GPS enabled on the drone, as well as we will talk about in the next slide, an RTK GPS system. So I think maybe some of these were a little bit swapped, so we will edit the color scheme for when we present these slides out. Next slide. We ask that your system has an RTK GPS system enabled and on your drone. This was not motivated by a first responder need for this system, but this was more motivated by the competition design. We are going to be grading you based off of your accurate location of where your drone is when it identifies a target. So we felt that it was necessary to have an RTK GPS system on your solution in order to be fair in scoring and accurate in scoring. We also asked that your drone be insured for a minimum of $1 million in general liability. This again is not a requirement that's motivated by first responders or the FAA. This is motivated for safety of the competition. And finally, a flight termination system must be enabled on your solution. And this is some sort of system that can cut power to the motors. So again, designed or included for safety requirements and not necessarily first responder requirements. Next slide. And so now we're going to talk about the Lifelink challenge, which again is similar to the FastFind challenge, but is slightly different. Next slide. So the goal of this challenge is to provide broadband connectivity to first responders in a remote area. So for example, a wildfire could be being contained by a group of wildland firefighters in a remote region where there are no cell signals or any connection between one another. And so the goal of this challenge is to build a UAS solution that can provide continuous broadband communications between each person in the field. Next slide. So again, much like the first challenge, this challenge has 3 stages: the concept paper submission, the check-in review, and the live event, where we will be testing your solution in a similar scenario, but in a way that addresses our broadband connectivity need. So for the live event, we're going to be grading deploy time and recover time of your system. But instead of looking at, trying to find lost persons in the woods, we will be looking at the data transfer rate of your solution, the data transfer distance of your solution, as well as how long you can connect multiple people in the air. Next slide. So as before with the previous challenge, stage 1 is looking for 4 documents: a cover page with an abstract of your solution, a Word document describing your solution, resume information, and a summary slide. Again, we very want to stress that your concept paper submission for stage 1 needs to include everything we asked for in the rules document. This is everything within the solution description content requirements in the rules document, as well as everything in the UAS design specification document. You must tell us that you're going to include an RTK GPS system in your solution. You must tell us that you will be under our weight requirement. You must tell us that you're going to be under our budgetary requirement. And again, the rules document is at the bottom left of the slide here and on most of the slides, and can be found from challenge.gov. Next slide. Stage 2 is again identical. We are going to be asking for a brief on how far along you are in the development of your solution, as well as we're going to ask for a flight video showing us that your solution is viable, it is safe, it is operational to a certain extent, and that it is worth moving on to our live event. The brief will include a bill of materials that contains all the parts that you either have on order or are going to order, with value with the cost of each of these parts. And again, this is to ensure that you are in compliance with our total cost, as well as to make sure that you are still on track for finishing your solution by the live event. Next slide. Now, stage 3 of the Lifelink challenge is going to be different than stage 3 of the FastFind challenge. In this stage, we're going to be deploying your solution in a realistic environment where we are going to have first responders with end user devices in the field. And it is your solution's job to connect these devices together. Teams will again be graded on how quickly their system is deployed, recovered, the total cost of their system, the data transfer rate, which is a test where we're going to look at who can transmit the most data at a specified distance. We're going to look at the data transfer distance, which is the distance at which you can hold a minimum data rate, and a mass connectivity and endurance test, where we will have your drone fly up into the middle of an area and provide continuous connectivity to as many phones as possible. Again, for stage 3, as well as all the other stages, you must adhere to all of our design specifications listed in the rules document. Next slide. Here, again, are all the requirements that we are asking for. You must have your entire system and payload under 55 pounds. The entire system weight has to be under 120 pounds. The system cost shall not exceed $20,000. And again, the drone should be able to take off and land vertically. Next slide. Here's where some of our requirements change from the previous challenge. First, we are now asking that this solution be able to hover and remain in place. So no longer are we allowing the system to loiter about an area, but we are asking that the system be able to stay in a sphere with a radius of 30 meters. Again, we are asking for the autonomy level of your system to be able to automatically take off and land and navigate to certain waypoints. And then again, as a difference to our previous challenge, we are asking competitors to now come up with a wireless transceiver that is going to be mounted and goes on to the drone. Now, this transceiver must be compatible with common end user devices, such as the Samsung Galaxy S10 or an iPhone 11, Google Pixel 4. It must be able to transmit IP data packets between end devices, and must be able to be compatible with Ethernet for what I will talk about in a second, the payload server. This is where we are hoping competitors come up with unique and innovative solutions to make sure that they can maximize connectivity range, data rates, and meet the goal of connecting first responders in the field. The second requirement is the payload server, which is something that the NIST challenge team will be constructing. This server is going to be the test measurement device that we will use to look at your data rates and look at your continuous connectivity and look at the overall value add of your system. This payload server, we've given the power requirements, which the drone must supply, and we've also given its dimensions and weight. And this will, again, be used for test and measure for the competition, but is also a very likely component for a realistic first responder scenario. In a way, this payload server could be configured to provide certain services to first responders on the ground, such as mission critical push to talk or file sharing or situational awareness exchange. So although we are using this purely for a test and measure scenario, this payload server would be absolutely common in a realistic first responder deployment. Next slide. Again, we are going to ask that there is a real-time video stream from your drone, so there should be some sort of camera mounted to the drone. We are asking for GPS and RTK GPS, again, because we want higher level accuracy than what regular GPS can provide. So we're asking RTK GPS because we will be grading based off of the drone's position. And we also ask that the drone be insured. Next slide. Slightly different than in the last competition in 3.1, the FastFind, we are asking that there are no tethers with this solution. And then finally, we also ask that there's a flight termination system. So to reiterate, we are requiring that all of these features and minimums and maximums be accounted for your solution, and they must be in your solution concept paper. It must be addressed in stage 2 when we check in and make sure that you are under all these requirements, and it must be at the live event as well. And I think with that, I will hand it back to Therese to go over some of the other stages, the timeline, as well as the more fun to talk about prizes of the competition.
Very true. Thanks, Max. So I will talk a little bit about the stages, the prizes, and the timeline. And just a reminder that 3.1 is the FastFind challenge, and 3.2 is the Lifelink challenge. So 3.1 has to do with the image detection, and 3.2 has to do with the data relay. So because both of the competitions are very similar, we have similar goals for first responders. The drone might actually be a similar type of drone, but has these different capabilities. So in that case, the stages are going to be very similar as well, because we'll be evaluating them in a similar manner. So for both of these challenges, there are 3 stages. In the first stage, we will be selecting up to 15 contestants, concept papers, and be awarding prizes for them to move to stage 2. Stage 2, there are 2 parts to stage 2, actually 3, if you want to look at it that way. But the winners of stage 1 will go through a check-in review, and up to 10 of those will win prizes. The other 5 contestants may be invited to continue on into the second phase and may not receive prizes, and certainly have the opportunity then to win prizes in the second video evaluation phase. The final video evaluation phase will include not only the contestants that have participated since stage 1, but it will also include the walk-on contestants, where we will allow walk-on contestants a period of time in the February-March timeframe for walk-on contestants to submit brand new material that did not participate necessarily in stage 1 or 2 and be evaluated with the phase 2 of stage 2. So to make that a little bit more clear, we will be evaluating all the walk-on contestants as well as all the final stage 2 contestants and determine up to 10 prize winners who will move on to stage 3. Stage 3 is the live event, and there will be up to 4 final winners. There's a first, second, and third place prize, as well as a people's choice or first responders choice, excuse me. And so those stage 2 winners and walk-ons will be participating in that stage. To look a little bit at the prizes, we talked about the up to 15 awards in stage 1. So that will be $7,000 each for those winners. And then as part of the check-in review for stage 2, we will award up to $3,000 to 10 of those contestants. And then, as I mentioned before, the 5 remaining may be invited to continue on if their materials were sufficient, but didn't rank as high. They would be able to continue on into the video evaluation phase. The $5,000 video evaluation prize is actually a travel prize award to invite the teams, up to 4 members of the teams, to fly or travel to Starkville, Mississippi for the stage 3 live event. And that's really where you're going to have the big prizes. The first place prize is worth $40,000, the second place prize worth $20,000, third place $10,000, and then there will be a first responders choice award worth $5,000, which will be awarded by the first responders who are participating in the evaluation of all the stages. This is just another look at the timeline. So this is the 3.1 FastFind challenge. It's just slightly off from the 3.2 Lifelink challenge. And I'll describe a little bit of that. But stage 1, all the challenges opened yesterday, August 2nd, and they will all close on September 30th. And the evaluation will take about a month. And we will announce at the end of October the winners of this of stage 1. And then here's where it changes a little bit from the 2 different challenges. And it's drastically different than the third challenge that you can hear about tomorrow. But the timeline changes by about a week, and you can review that in the rules or on the website. But the check-in review submissions will be in the January 10th timeframe. That will be a presentation to the evaluators, and then those winners will be announced at the end of January. Then we also introduce the walk-on submissions, and we will ask the walk-on submissions to not only provide all of the materials from stage 1 and check-in review of stage 2, but also the video evaluation. So they will have all of those materials to submit by April 8th and be evaluated with the stage 2 contestants. And those winners will be announced on May 13th. And then the live demonstration event in Starkville, Mississippi will be the first 3 days of that week, June 20th to the 22nd. And the Lifelink challenge will be the latter part of that week. I'll show you in a minute. And we will announce winners by the end of June. So again, this is very similar. The stage 2 check-in review adjusted by a week. The announcements adjusted by a week, and so do the walk-on submissions. as well as the video evaluation. And then by the time you get to stage 3, the live demonstration, that is the latter part of that week. And we will announce all the winners at the end of June. So the challenge website is live. You probably already saw it when you registered for this event. But we just wanted to point out a few things about the challenge website. You can click on the toolbar for challenges, and you'll see that there are all 3 challenges. If you select any one of those, you'll go into the details of each one of those challenges. It'll provide you links to the rules as well. Also under resources and sponsors, you'll see that you can gain access directly to the rules. But more importantly for right now, I know you have a lot of questions, and if you don't ask questions today and you discover you have questions later, there are multiple ways for you to ask questions directly to the challenge web team or the challenge team, but you can also ask your questions on the FAQ and we will respond to those. Just as a side note, all of the questions that you'll be asking today, we will place those on the FAQ as well. And then the contestant portal is where you can register for the challenge. You can do that today, and that will also be the location where you will submit all your materials. So you can go ahead and get started in there. You can register, not submit your materials today, and be able to submit your materials all the way up through September 30th. So that's about it for the end of our presentation. We will provide the PDF of this presentation on the challenge website along with the recording. And all of these links are live, will be live in the PDF. And as Max mentioned, we'll correct a couple of things on the PowerPoint slide for you. And then you'll be able to use this as another resource. So now I think we're going to transition over to Bailey. Maybe Bailey, if you could go live. Oh, one more piece of information that just came up this morning. We are going to have a PSCR webinar. So as I mentioned, NIST, PSCR, we support public safety. We have thousands of stakeholders, first responder stakeholders that we support. And we do a regular monthly webinar that on August 24th, which I didn't put the date on there, but August 24th is going to be our webinar. It'll be a panel of several of the people that are involved in this challenge. So you can learn about the challenge again, but more importantly, you can learn about the research that we do for first responders. And that will be on the challenge website shortly. So let's move over to questions. Bailey, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I got a little bit of a sore throat today.
Okay.
We do have one in the Q&A from Pete Lee. They say for the stage 2 of, I'm assuming it's bill of materials submissions, what do you recommend for the UAS and other components we already own? Note my prospective team members will be using items we can get prices and SKUs for.
I can answer that. Yeah, so you can use components that you already have and drones that you already have or own. But for the bill of materials, you must include how much you purchased it for. The idea behind the bill of materials is to make sure that you are within the total solution cost of the system. And so that the solution that you're coming up with is an affordable one for first responders. So if you already have components, that's great, and that saves you money. But for the bill of materials, it still has to be included.
Great, thank you. And keep the questions coming. Bailey, do we have another question?
Yeah, I've got one. Give me 1 second here. I've actually got one for the group, which is what are the expectations of the competitors related to the FFA regulatory compliance and execution of each challenge?
Max, can you take that one as well?
Yeah, so we do ask that you are within Part 107 compliance throughout the duration of the competition. This will require you to have a Part 107 license or someone on your team to have that. Again, as we've stated explicitly in the challenge too, you must be under 55 pounds. You cannot fly over people. You must be within visual line of sight. We strongly recommend all the contestants submitting review Part 107 compliance. Especially things like beyond visual line of sight. We've had in the past people not, quite understand the rules, but we will hold you to a strict standard to be Part 107 compliant. Yeah. So there's another question in the chat. Will 3.2 accept solutions for delay tolerant networking instead of or in addition to real-time communications? Yes, we will accept that so long as it works with the end devices that we've mentioned before. You may want to consider, we will be scoring you on data transfer rate and data transfer distance, but if in addition to a real-time link that you have delay tolerant networking, if you believe that that will increase your score in whatever way, then by all means, we will allow that.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a few.
Okay.
Where did that go? Can a foreign team compete?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So the funding from the federal government for open innovation and crowdsourcing came from an act and authority several years ago. And the funds for this require that a minimum of one US citizen be on the team and receive the prize award. So we are very interested in international solutions and things that are happening around the world, and we do encourage foreign teams. You do need to partner with a US partner in order to participate. Hopefully that answers your question, and if you have specific questions, a lot of times in the international space, you can ask those directly to us. Bailey, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, what happens in the event of a tie?
I will take that as well. And actually, I should have also mentioned on the last question, there is a terms and conditions at the end of the official rules for each of the contests. And in those terms and conditions, what I just referred to with the international or foreign is eligibility requirements. So be sure to look at that closely. You have to be 18 years or older as well. So you just asked a question, or someone asked a question about a tiebreaker, and that answer is also in the terms and conditions. But what happens is if, for example, if first, second, and third place, or first and second place tie by a score ranking that is determined by the judges, then it can be determined by the judges that they both receive a first place award. However, then the second place award would not be awarded, and then we would jump to the third place award. So the prize monies for first and second, they would both, I guess, similar to the Olympics and what I just watched recently, they would both get the gold medal or the first place prize.
Cool. What also happens if I'm chosen to go to the live event and I can't make it?
Yeah, so in the case of a team, at any point in time, a team does not have to accept the prize award or continue on with the contest. We do encourage and support you all along the way, and we love to hear from you if there are any concerns about you not being able to participate or your drone crashes. We do have experts on our team who try and help you solve some of the problems, and we we'll open up our our email box or blog box so that you can ask those questions, and so we can help support you. So we certainly hope no one has to drop out at any point along the way. But if you're not able to participate in the live event and you were awarded the prize to travel to the live event, then you would forfeit the travel funds for that.
Awesome. I have another question. So how long will it take me to receive my funding if I do win? And do I have to pay taxes on it?
Good questions. Everyone has their own individual situation. As far as the payout, although we are the federal government and you might anticipate a very lengthy period of time, we do have our negotiations with our procurement team and our finance team. So we do try very hard to get those funds out within a couple weeks after the award announcement. That generally is what happens, unless there's some problem with a banking account number or something that you provided us that is not accurate. The tax question, I will just tell you that I'm not a tax advisor. We don't want to advise you on your taxes, but it is a very smart thing to talk with your tax or financial planner or tax advisor about how you accept the funds. I will say that much about that. But yeah, you really do need to work with your tax advisor in accepting the funds.
Cool. Thanks for letting me know.
Are there any other questions out there? Well, very good. I mean, I think at this point in time, we're very early on in the competition, obviously one day in, and I encourage everybody to read the rules thoroughly. As I mentioned early on, the reasons for the criteria are really focused on what first responders need, but also the research around it. So they might seem to you to be a bit odd. Not a typical DARPA contest or some other contest that you may have been involved in recently. So those are the reasons and the focus of this competition, and we do appreciate your involvement. We give you a lot of opportunity to work with PSCR and NIST and future opportunities as far as grants and working to expand your research potentially if you're an academic. And so we do encourage all your questions to us, and we will hopefully be a good partner for you as well. Max, do you have anything else that you would like to add for the end of the presentation?
Yeah, I think just one of the number one things, that I've seen with, the competitions that we've run here at PSCR is, we really encourage people to ask questions if they are unsure about something. We will get you an answer one way or another. And, it's always an awkward moment when a team doesn't ask a question, infers something, and then we get to a scenario where it's, oh, well, we didn't really know, but this is our submission, and now we have to grade it based off of whatever you submitted. So please just, ask us, send us an email, communicate with us if you are unsure about something.
Great, thank you. And so I'll end there and also encourage you to sign up, check the website, register for the Shields Up Challenge that's happening tomorrow, the contestant webinar, and also to register for the PSCR webinar later on this month. But thank you all for joining, and we look forward to working with you.